the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Tuesday, early afternoon here in Puerto Rico, morning for many of you, evening for some of you in Europe. No idea where that came from. Thanks for joining me for another episode of our news Roundup on this February 7th. All right, you've probably all heard already about the massive 7.8 earthquake in Turkey and parts of Syria. The pictures are pretty devastating. Whole blocks of apartment buildings flattened, really. Latest numbers are over 5,000 dead. Those numbers are probably going to keep rising. There are also probably some pretty remote places that people haven't gotten to or gotten information of. But pretty horrific. 7.8 earthquake is a significant earthquake. That is a big earthquake. It's the largest to hit that region in a long time. The earthquake was felt as far away as Israel and even, I think, Egypt. And I think, more than anything, it's events like this remind us of how relatively how the extent to which nature wants to kill us, the extent to which the world is a dangerous place, the extent to which there are, earthquakes, fires, hurricanes, a gazillion ways in which droughts and so on, in which nature doesn't want to kill us, but nature is in nature's actions, affect human beings and affect human beings often for the worse. And the extent to which civilization protects us. And the richer the country, the better protected you're going to be. The richer the country, the fewer deaths you're going to suffer because of earthquakes or weather events or anything else. The better the construction material, the more solid, the better the science about the swaying of the building, everything about this. The richer, more sophisticated, more capitalist a country is going to be, the better it's going to be able to withstand earthquakes of 7.8. I suspect that if a 7.8 hit the Bay Area, you'd have fewer casualties than in Turkey. The same with regard to Tokyo, and there are many other, not many, but there were a few other regions, LA and other regions, in which earthquakes are prevalent, large earthquakes are prevalent, and you can basically, with the same level of clustering of people, the richer, more advanced, are going to survive this and going to suffer less. So yes, truly horrific to live through something like that, and it's sad to see so many deaths. It is a reminder that the world is not a particularly friendly place for human beings, and that it takes our minds, it takes our technology, it takes our science, it takes our ability to actually to protect ourselves from all the things that nature throws at us in its attempt to kill us. Be happy that you live in a relatively rich place, relatively wealthy place. And this goes, of course, to all the weather events that people are panic over with regard to climate change. There's a reason why climate deaths have declined, even if you can make the case that hurricanes or whatever are increasing. The number of people actually who are killed and injured by these events declines because of our wealth, because of our technology, because we can build shelters that protect us from it. All right. There was a story. I guess this is not listed in my stuff, but there was a tweet. Somebody pointed out to me that Nina Turner. I guess Nina Turner. Who's Nina Turner? She's an educator, an activist, a senior fellow at Race Power Policy, a former Ohio State senator and professor. So pretty prominent woman. She tweeted, "I do believe we can abolish poverty." And the Oklahoma Libertarian Party tweeted, "Only capitalism can abolish poverty." And Nina tweeted, "Capitalism created the poverty we now see." Wow. And there was a good tweet in response by a Maine state senator. I'm not endorsing this guy because who knows what else he believes, but at least on this he is pretty good. And he writes, "Poverty is not created. Poverty is the default state of mankind. Wealth is created. If you want to eliminate poverty, the important question is, how do we create wealth?" He's obviously reading the right books, reading the right articles, following the right people, because that is exactly the right answer to give. So good for Senator Eric Brackey. I guess he's a senator from state senator from Maine, and on this particular point, he's absolutely right. There you go. Once in a while, I actually say politician is right. All right, a kind of interesting story. Did I just close the file with the story? Oh no, there it is. Okay. Interesting story. I don't know if maybe some of you remember, some of you don't, but a while ago, 2018, it was, this story broke, and I covered it on the Yaron Book Show at the time. I don't know how many of you were following me back then. But in 2018, a Chinese scientist, a Chinese biologist in China, used CRISPR technology. CRISPR is the gene editing technology. For the first time ever in human history, for the first time, he used CRISPR to actually change the genes of unborn, to change the genes of a pair of twins before they were born, so as fetuses. He went in with CRISPR. CRISPR goes in, and they clip away. They can either change a gene or they can clip off a gene. And in this case, the gene in question was a gene that makes possible HIV. And by taking it away, he basically made these children immune from HIV. He did this to a couple of twins nicknamed Lula and Nana, and then a third baby, Amy. Her genes were altered as well, and she was born about a year later. And all this came out in 2018. He was a scientist, as I said, in China, but he had been trained he got his PhD at Rice University, and he'd done a postdoc in genomic sequencing at Stanford University before he returned to China in 2012. And kind of one of the things that this really showed was the amazing potential of CRISPR to edit genes, and to edit genes before we're born. By doing that, potentially you could alter genes for Alzheimer's. You could alter genes for Parkinson's. You can just eliminate them from the chain, and once you eliminate them, once they don't exist in the fetus, they don't exist in the adult. They don't get transmitted to future generations. You could eradicate whole genetic diseases over time by doing this. I mean, this is a major thing. The challenge, of course, is that we don't know all the consequences of this. We don't know the extent to which there are unintended consequences. We don't know the extent to which this affects other gene sequences. We don't know if the genes that are taken out maybe have other responsibilities other than just, let's say, HIV or Parkinson's or whatever it is. And generally, the scientific community around the world had decided not to do these kind of experiments on fetuses before they were born, and to limit gene therapy to experimentation on animals in the lab, and to adults, where you go in and you try to change a gene of an adult in an attempt to fight a disease, where you can control and monitor the risks involved, and where the consequences do not then cascade into the rest of their lives. Anyway, this was done in 2018. It was a big story at the time. The scientific community, once they discovered this, was split. Some people were super excited by his ability to do this and the fact that the babies were born normally and healthy. But there was also a massive outcry about this, that there had been a consensus not to do this. He had broken that consensus. And as a consequence of that, he was shunned. The Chinese authorities ultimately arrested him claiming he had violated kind of the medical ethics and violated, I guess, some law in China. He was sentenced to jail, to prison. He spent 3 years in prison, and he has recently been released and giving interviews. So what's interesting is the Chinese government has not barred him from medical research. They haven't barred him from doing interviews. He's actually traveling to the United States and going to be giving, I think, to actually the UK, and giving a talk at Oxford about what he did and how he did it and the outcome and so on. He now argues that, yes, he agrees that it was too early. He shouldn't have done it that early. I think he believes that. Hard to tell. Of course, he's under threat from the Chinese government, so it really is hard to tell what he actually believes. I think his Oxford talk should be really interesting. This is cutting-edge medicine. This is a game changer, both in terms of dealing with genetic diseases, potentially extending human life. I mean, it's hard to imagine kind of all the benefits that can accrue with this, but of course, there's also the potential now to go in and you can decide on all kinds of things about your baby before they're born, if this technology gets approved, and if this technology it becomes popular, and of course, if this technology proves to be safe as people expect it to be. Anyway, the scientist is out. He's giving interviews. The good news is he has given us an update on Lulu, Nana, and Amy. All 3 babies are doing fine. There seem to be no side effects. There seem to be no negative implications of what was done, which is all good news, and good news in terms of the science. All 3 will be monitored by the scientific community in China until they're 18, at which point they will have a choice to decide whether they want to continue being monitored into adulthood. Their names have never been released, their full names, so they're still anonymous, but obviously they're being monitored for health issues. I think this is an amazing story with a lot of kind of interesting upside and generally something to be excited about. I think he did this too early. I don't think what he did is right, but he did it. We might as well learn as much as we can from what he did, and I think the scientific community is going to. I think the fact that he's on the kind of touring and giving talks about this is a good thing. The fact that he hasn't been silenced by the Chinese authority is a good thing. It means this kind of medicine is gonna continue. For him, the gene he edited was a gene that eliminated the susceptibility to AIDS. I think there was an issue with the father having AIDS. I can't remember exactly the context of why he eliminated this particular gene for these particular kids, but there was some reason to believe that these kids could get AIDS, I think because the father had AIDS, and by in a sense, changing this one gene, he made it impossible for them to ever get AIDS. And everybody thinks that this will work. The real questions everybody had was, what are the other consequences? And so far, so good. So far, there haven't been any other consequences or any other negative consequences that we know. Of course, the kids are still young. They're still, 4 or 5, something like that. So we will see as they age. But these are the kind of, I think, exciting scientific stories that are worth watching and tracking, and could have a profound impact, particularly on those of you who are young. All right. All right. Let's see. We're going to talk about vaccines in a minute, so we might as well talk about this. So Trump for a long time was like, warp speed, I got this vaccines really fast, I saved millions of lives, I'm a hero, I'm vaccinated, I'm boosted, I'm great, and he was booed when he would do this in his own gatherings. So by the Republican faithful, by the MAGA crowds, he was booed doing that. So he has pivoted. Because remember, Trump is never about truth. Trump is never about fact. Trump is never about honesty. Trump is all about what will get him, what he thinks will satisfy his audience and what will make him lovable, what will make them love him. And now he is all in on the anti-vax crusade. He is all in on attacking DeSantis and attacking vaccines when he can. So yesterday on his Truth Social network, he tweeted. I guess we can still call it a tweet, even though it's on a different platform. That's kind of interesting. He tweeted, "The real Ron DeSantis, of course, is a rhino globalist." So Ron DeSantis, you guys didn't know this, but Ron DeSantis is a rhino globalist. Wow, I mean, I might vote for him if that were true. But is a rhino globalist. One, he said, who loved the vaccines. I mean, the guy who loved the vaccines, clearly, there's video evidence, is Trump. But that doesn't sell anymore, so he doesn't love the vaccines anymore. It's Ron DeSantis who loved the vaccines. I think Ron DeSantis was pro-vaccines at the time, not anymore, it turns out. So what is amazing about this is just Trump flipping all over the place on these issues. The fact that Trump does not waste a day without going out with some stupid attack on DeSantis, stupid and pathetic, I might add, attack on DeSantis. DeSantis is, so far as we've said, staying quiet. We'll see what happens. But also, this says a lot about how totally nutty the Republican Party has become, where the leading candidates, the two leading candidates in the Republican Party, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, who today probably get 90+% of Republican votes between the two of them, depending on which poll. Some have DeSantis up, some have Trump up, but they both obviously are the front runners and have a overwhelming majority of Republicans. The two leading Republican candidates are both now vaccine conspiracy, vaccine denialists, vaccine, nutcases. So the way to win the Republican nomination seems to flow through wacky conspiracy theory, anti-vaccine crazies. So it's just, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up, particularly with regard to Trump, who should take credit for Operation Warp Speed. I mean, I think they give the government too much credit in Operation Warp Speed, but could take credit for Operation Warp Speed, and is running away from it because the Republican base right now is much more influenced by the anti-vaccine conspiracy theory, people at the margin. Just truly nuts. But that's your Republican Party. These are who are going to save you from the left. They're going to save you from the woke left. All right. Talk about vaccines. I said I would bring up periodically some number that I've seen. Okay, so somebody, a series of tweets I saw. But what about Australia? Australia vaccinated all these people, and now they have excess deaths. In 2022, they have excess deaths. They vaccinated everybody in 2021. In 2022, more people died than should have died in Australia. And the reason for this is because correlation equals causation. We know that, right? If the two are correlated, they must be caused. So the reason for that is the vaccines in 2021 caused the excess deaths in 2022. Isn't this obvious? Don't you just see it? Well, of course, the answer is no. I don't see it. And the explanation for excess deaths in 2022 is not that hard if you really spend just a little bit of time to evaluate the data. So the anti-vax nutcases, the anti-vax, the whole mentality of vaxxers are killing people in large numbers, is just like any other conspiracy theory. No amount of data will convince them that it's different. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how much data. I'm doing this for anybody who might be on the fence, who might be open to argument, because there's so much anti-vaccine nonsense out there. And there's that you need somebody at least to say, no, none of this is right. And to present a little bit of evidence as to just why none of it is right. But the reality is that no, the vaxxers are fine. For young males, you see a slight increase, very low, but slight increase in the risk of myocarditis and pericarditis, so heart disease, but very small. Almost no increase in deaths as a consequence. If there is, it's tiny. It's a negligible percentage, and so yes, for young healthy males in particular, it's questionable whether you want the vaccine because it slightly increases your risk for this, but so does COVID. As I've said often, COVID also increases your risk for these heart issues. So it's not clear. I think to me it's a toss-up. I just don't think young healthy adults need to be vaccinated. I said this from the beginning, and children I don't think need to be vaccinated. Certainly not boosted. But that's not what these people are claiming. If they claimed, there's a slight risk of, some issues with the heart, that would be scientific. No, they're claiming people are dropping dead. They're claiming massive excess deaths because of the vaccines. They're claiming completely unscientific, nonsensical stuff. So yes, excess deaths are up in Australia in 2022. And yes, in 2021, Australia vaccinated most of its population. Overwhelming majority of Australians are vaccinated. Indeed, the latest number suggests that significant numbers of Australians, I think it's 6 million Australians out of 26 million have 4 doses of the vaccines. But there is, so yes, it looks like first vaccines, then excess deaths. But the fact is that vaccines started in 2021, and yet excess deaths didn't really appear until 2022. What did happen in 2022? What actually happened in 2022? In 2022, what you saw was Australia opening up. You remember 2020 and 2021? Australia was locked down. I mean, it was a prison. Like in the 18th century, it was a prison. You couldn't leave your home. And then in February of 2022, they opened up. International flights, you could leave the country, you could come back into the country, you could go everywhere. What happened when they opened up? Massive spike in COVID, which is exactly what you'd expect. Massive spike in COVID. Now, if you're vaccinated, can you still die of COVID? Yes. Is your probability reduced of dying with COVID? Massively. Massively. So it's massively reduced, but you're still going to have COVID deaths. And indeed, 2/3 of all excess deaths in 2022 were from COVID. Not hard to find that out. Even young people die of COVID. Why? Well, if they're obese, if they have diabetes. It turns out Australian population is pretty obese. A lot of young obese people in Australia. They're the ones dying of COVID. But what about the other excess deaths? Well, first of all, there's always noise around excess death, but it turns out that in 2020 and 2021, there were fewer deaths than normal. Excess deaths were negative among young people. And there was almost no excess deaths before that. And so there was actually negative excess deaths in 2021. So a lot of people who might have got the flu and died of old age, but with the flu, or a lot of people who might have got some other infection and then died of old age and so on, didn't die in 2020 and 2021. And they caught up in 2022. They died in 2022. Now, it's true that lockdowns do prevent people from dying. I mean, if you don't drive, there'll be fewer traffic accidents. If men don't go out after 8 p.m. at night or don't go out at all from their apartments, rape will go down. My objection to lockdowns was not that they're not, quote, efficacious. My objection to lockdowns always was that they're a massive violation of individual rights. Individuals should decide on their own risk profile. They should decide whether they go out or not. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that lockdown reduced excess deaths. They did. And then Australia caught up in 2022. They caught up because suddenly they got COVID. And they caught up because people who didn't die in 2020 and 2021 for all kinds of other reasons like respiratory diseases who didn't get them because they didn't go out, died in 2022. These are easy explanations that it's easy to find. And I know I'm going to lose another 10, 20 subscribers because I dare actually support vaccines, and that's okay. I'd rather lose than not tell you guys the truth, as I told you yesterday. The truth is what matters in the Yaron Book Show, not all this BS. And you could take, I mean, I do this on Twitter. You can take every single one of these claims. One other argument against this vaccine nonsense. So Australia saw excess death in 2022 after it vaccinated in 2021. France vaccinated in 2021. Didn't see excess deaths in 2022. Sweden, you remember Sweden? They never locked down. But they vaccinated in spite of not locking down. In spite of the fact that they were gaining natural immunity, they vaccinated. They have a very high vaccination rate in Sweden. A lot of it mRNA. They vaccinated in 2021, and guess what happened? No excess deaths in 2022. Same is true with Denmark. What was the other country I was looking at? Okay, so those are three, right? No excess deaths, but they vaccinate. And some countries, you do see excess deaths in spite of vaccination. Some countries, you don't see excess deaths in spite of vaccination. So maybe there are other causes. Maybe something else is at play. Maybe there are other issues involved. But no, these guys see a graph, they see causation, they run with it because anything to confirm the conspiracy theory. Now note, I forget this law of logic, right? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. It's a pretty extraordinary claim that every government pretty much in the world is deceiving its citizens by telling them the vaccinations are safe. That 90%, 99% of doctors, 99% of doctors are deceiving their patients by telling them the vaccination is safe. There has to be extraordinary evidence to suggest that that is false. There is none. There's not even a little bit of evidence. Not even a little bit of evidence. And the reality is that the people pushing this, the doctors, the so-called scientists, and the media people pushing this, are making a fortune off of this. They're making a fortune off of it. If you look at some of these people, then I think I saw. I think the former New York Times writer who was vaccine conspiracy theory guy writes about this regularly. He's getting something like $100,000 a month on his Substack, by some estimate. Wow, that's pretty good incentive to keep going on your conspiracy theory. I don't believe most of them believe what they're saying. I believe that they, at least the guy who invented mRNA vaccines has a has an issue that he's got a reason to attacking science because he believes they didn't give him enough credit. All of these guys, it's not an issue of how much they make. It's an issue of the incentive they have. The incentive they have is to get more subscribers. And in order to get more subscribers, you have to continue with the conspiracy theories. And, you know, as I said, big claims need big evidence. I'm still waiting for the evidence. Evidence, not even proof. I'm looking for evidence. Because every time I see a claim, it takes me, I don't know, 10 minutes to debunk. There are now websites that'll give you, by country, by age group, mortality and excess mortality rates. You can go and see it for yourself. You can investigate. You can check out any country you want. And yet, every single one of these arguments falls apart under scrutiny. There is no evidence. These guys are making this up. Maybe some of them believe this, but then they're deceiving themselves. I have watched these guys, and they are unconvincing, deceptive, and the data does not align with what they are arguing at all. At all. All right, let's see some super chat questions. Adam says, your show on monopolies was excellent and wanted to contribute since I didn't listen live. Government intervention today often reminds me of the bureaucrats in Atlas explaining the benefits of the Unification Plan. Yes, I mean, so much of what happens today is a reflection of everything presented today is a reflection of what Atlas presents. Atlas is just so insightful. You just get it playing out. The fact that somebody presents official data doesn't mean anything. I've seen, this is the point, a lot of the data, not all, some of the data is made up, but a lot of the data that these people present is official data, but then they make causation equals correlation kind of arguments that are nonsense, that are easily testable, that are easy to rebut. That's why I don't really think these people are honest. Again, present me with an argument, and let me go and dig in the data. It is entertainment. What they're selling is entertainment, not reality. And they make a lot of money off of it, so they continue to entertain. Max, $50. Wow, thank you, Max. If those of us in favor of free markets, individualism, etc., are a small minority and most people want to live under socialism of one flavor or another, then isn't it we who are unethically attempting to impose our unusual desires on society? No, I mean, it can't be that we're unethical, because we're not imposing. Imposing means coercion. We're eliminating coercion. I often say, if people want to be socialists, they can do so in a free market. You can go off with your friends and start a commune somewhere, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs, and you can play that out all day long and live a pathetic, miserable life. You can start a kibbutz, as long as it's voluntary and people can't be forced to be there. The whole point is, morality is about extracting coercion from society in a political sense. Morality is about extracting coercion from society. It's about eliminating force. You can be immoral by wanting to extract coercion from society. They are the immoral ones because they want to impose what they want on the minority. They want to use force to impose it on us. If they're the majority and they think socialism is so good, they should do it voluntarily. Again, through communes, through contractual. You can have universal basic income tomorrow contractually. All the people who want it can sign a contract with all the people who are going to get it, and they can just send them a check every month. You don't need the government to force it. What we want is to get rid of force and let us live our lives as a minority, free of force and free of coercion. That is the only moral system. So we're not imposing our system on them. We're eliminating coercion. And then they can do what they want within that context of no coercion. You know, as long as I don't violate rights, as long as it's voluntary. So, no. Colleen, reality above all else. Second comment. Wonder if any politicians today are using the unification arguments in Atlas Shrugged for guidance. I'm sure there are people out there who read Atlas Shrugged and thought that you know, Leslie Mouch was the good guy. Maybe, and they're using the arguments from the book. I doubt it, but maybe. I think those people don't pay attention to Atlas Shrugged. It's just that Atlas Shrugged is so perceptive, so understands the logic that it's inevitable that the status will ultimately reflect back, right? Reflect back onto you what Atlas Shrugged does, because it's inevitable. It's inevitable that those are the arguments that will be used. All right, let's look at, we've got a bunch of others. We're $61 short of our goal, so easily, I think, achievable, easily doable. Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Max, for getting us there. Daniel says, Crowder was using wage slavery, God, what a term, to describe his contract with Dailywire. $50 million he was going to get because it required a number of episodes, otherwise his pay would be deducted. How bizarre. Yes, it is very bizarre. And it shows you how infantile the debate and the discussion really is, and how, you know, people don't understand what a voluntary contract is, what wage slavery is. There can't be wage slavery. It's either wages or slavery. Wages by definition is voluntary. I mean, all of this is ludicrous. So Crowder didn't get as much money from the Daily Wire as he wanted. All right? So walk away. Why has this become a major national issue? Bewildering. All right, Stephen says, hello, Yaron. I know we disagree about many things, but I still enjoy your channel. Also, if I ran for president, you probably wouldn't vote for me. No, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't, given what you've said over time. Scott says, you thought objectivism would be further along 10 years ago. Besides woke making Rand less socially acceptable, aren't lack of ad hoc coalitions also at play? No, I mean, I think that you could argue that it's the opposite. You could argue that, you know, and I think some objectivists argue this. I don't, but some objectivists could argue that our attempt to work with the Tea Party, our opening up to more activities with libertarians, our actual attempts to do more ad hoc coalitions that started about 12, 14 years ago, are actually what led to the fact that we're not further along. Maybe if we'd taken those resources and devoted them more to, I don't know, investing in more intellectuals, investing in, you could make the argument any way you want. No, it's not time to try again, because the coalition back then was, it seemed much better than anybody today. Today, every so-called coalition you could think of, every group that was conceivable, maybe good back then, is today so much worse. Who would you fight with? Republicans? Who would you fight with? Libertarians? The ones who are pro-Russia? You know, who are you going to fight? Who is the ad hoc group around? I mean, and what is the value of doing an ad hoc? So let's say we decided, okay, we want to fight woke, so we'll team up with Barry Weiss to fight woke. First of all, Barry wouldn't have us. And secondly, all right, she's fighting woke, we'll fight woke. Okay, what is it ad hoc that we have to do together? I mean, so many people out there have this fantasy, truly a fantasy, that's completely unhinged from reality, that somehow, if we all get together, we can solve. No, there's nothing to get together about. You know, you do your work, we'll do our work. We're generally fighting maybe in the same direction, great. And to the extent that we can work together, good. To the extent that we can't, we don't. I've been approached by center left, center right organizations to work with them, and we've worked with them. We approach sometimes organizations to work with them. We work with them. You know, if they're agreeable, we work with them. There's no disregard, but there has to be a project. There has to be something you're going to work on together. there's plenty of people today working on the woke issue. I don't think what they lack right now is just another objectivist, a couple of objectivist intellectuals, and then woke will go away. It's just not how the world works. It's, again, a delusional fantasy. Landon Wall says, Doctor changes this one thing, commies hate him. Well, not exactly. And more than the commies hated him, the whole scientific community, or a big chunk of the scientific community, was pretty up in arms. Apollo Zeus says, whoop, speed objectivism. We're trying. All right, we're $52 short. Pretty close. Don't let this just $52 prevent us from achieving our goal. Again, $1 from each person who is listening right now would get us to our goal. $1, $2, $5, we'd get there like that. 10 $5 ones, we'd get there, right? So, 120 people listening right now live. So we should be able to get there pretty easily. All right, James says, Massachusetts and California both are extremely liberal and have welfare and heavy drug abuse rampant through their states. Do you think they'll keep being prosperous? Also, both states are strong for VC companies. Yeah, I mean, the fact is Massachusetts, I think is the richest state in the union, and California isn't particularly wealthy but obviously has a lot of wealthy people in it. Look, I think it's easy for us to focus on the welfare and drug abuse and all of that, and what we ignore, and what I think generally people out there ignore and don't understand, and this is why we don't understand what's going on economically in our lives and in the world around us. What we ignore is the great benefits of California and Massachusetts. And I can think of, 3 massive benefits that California and Massachusetts have that other states just don't have. And other states it's going to take decades for other states to catch up. One is the 2 states have the best STEM educational institutions in the world. California has Berkeley, Stanford, Caltech, even UCLA, University of California, San Diego in biotech. I mean, this is world-class, world-best institutions in STEM in what actually advances human prosperity and moves us forward. 2, Massachusetts has obviously MIT, Harvard, and more, I think, universities per capita in the greater Boston area than any other place, certainly in the U.S., maybe on planet Earth, I can't remember, but an amazing concentration of universities, including STEM. Second, these 2 states have, I think it's true, more PhDs, at least in California. It might not be the whole state, but certainly the Bay Area. More PhDs per capita, PhDs in STEM than any other place. Massive benefit. And the same is true of Massachusetts, of course. And then third is the network effect. The fact that in Boston so many biotech companies are there. That in Boston, so many biotech companies and some tech, but mainly biotech companies are there, and they network with one another. And the talent is networked, and all that talent and those companies are networked with the universities. And you get the same network effect in Silicon Valley, but also in San Diego when it comes to biotech, and also in places like Orange County when it comes to, telecommunications, and a lot of former Defense Department people live there, defense contractor PhDs, and you just get these amazing networking effects of really, really, really smart, unbelievably entrepreneurial people who are changing the world. And you can complain and you can bitch and you can do all that stuff. But the fact is that California and Massachusetts are the 2 states driving this country forward, much more than any red state is. And that seems wrong, and it seems unjust, and it seems like they should suffer because they have so much welfare. But this outweighs the welfare effect. Because the positive always outweighs the negative. So, anyway, that's That, I think, is what's going on. John, thank you. Really appreciate it. Look, over time, both California and Massachusetts will suffer the consequence of their actions over time. Imagine how rich California and Massachusetts would be if they weren't so leftist. But the reality is, am I suggesting we all move to California? No, I moved out, and a lot of people are moving out. Lots of people are moving out. But if you want a startup, if you're in the tech industry, and if you want a startup, and if you want venture capital funding, the best place in the world for you to be is Silicon Valley. That's a reality. Maybe second best is Tel Aviv, and third best is Austin, Texas. I don't know. You'd have to look at the data. But certainly Silicon Valley is still the #1 place in the world. If you're an ambitious entrepreneur in the technology space, wanting venture capital, that's where you want to be. So whether you go to California or not depends on you. Your stage in life depends on what your ambitions are, depends on what you're trying to do. But the idea that California is so bad, so evil, so horrible, that nobody would ever go there, nobody will go there, it's just going to collapse and fall into the sea, is wrong and ludicrous. Okay, it's just not going to happen. Vladimir, thank you. Adam, thank you. Friend Casey, thank you. Linda, thank you. Darlene, thank you. Gail, thank you. And Vladimir, thank you. All right, I'm going to do these quickly because we have to wrap it up. Which email is for the OCON scholarship? Yaron@yaronbrookshow.com. I got yours. I'm pretty sure I got yours. Hunter. I think I got yours already. But if you haven't sent it in, please send it in. Just a reminder quickly. If you want a scholarship to OCON, if you want to attend OCON for free, I could probably get you one. But all you have to do is write me a paragraph on why you want it, who you are, what your connection is to Ayn Rand or to my show, and why you'd like to come to OCON, and send it to Yaron@yaronbrookshow.com. I got very few requests. This is free money that you guys are leaving on the table. This is an amazing week that you will have, and I was surprised at how few people have actually asked for it. So do it. You could still apply until the end of this week for those. Okay, Jacob says, the same scientist at Pfizer found vax safe, effective for adults, found vax safe, effective for kids. Same CDC, FDA found vax effective for adults, kids. Yet you think, you don't think kids need you anti-vax. I'm not anti-vax. And I'm allowed to disagree with the CDC and the FDA and Pfizer. I don't think the vaccines are horrifically dangerous for kids. I just don't think it's necessary. I didn't think, the CDC, the FDA thought that kids should not go to school. I thought kids should go to school. The FDA, CDC thought we should have lockdowns. I opposed lockdowns. The FDA, CDC thought we should have a mask mandate. I was against a mask mandate. They thought we should have a vaccine mandate. I was against a vaccine mandate. So I can disagree with them. But the reality is that vaccines, that all the hysteria about the vaccines, the claims about sudden death and all this stuff about the vaccines are just false. They're not true. Now, if you're interested in the nuanced science of it, if you're interested in the increased risk the vaccines do pose young adults, then I'm happy to have that discussion with you. And why I don't think kids need it, primarily because COVID is not a threat to young kids. So it's not even an issue if there's any side effects to vaccines. COVID is just not a threat to kids, so why vaccinate them? But if you're willing to have a nuanced discussion about it, I'm happy to do it. But nobody out there is having a nuanced discussion about it. It's hysteric and misinformation, constant flow of misinformation. And I'm fighting against it. I've said all the things I disagree with the CDC and FDA. Now I'm telling you all the things I disagree with the crazy, nutty wing of the Republican Party who thinks that vaccines are killing us all. All right, Caleb, first experience with a perfect competition free market economist was last year. Asked what free even meant and how we could equate it with state control. His response was literally blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, they don't want those kind of questions. They're not interested in that kind of discussion. Paul says, you need to put together a montage of all Trump's speeches supporting vaccines. I'm sure DeSantis has it ready. I'm sure if not, DeSantis will have it ready for the, if he's worth anything, he will have it ready for when he runs. I have no interest in linking Trump with the vaccines. I have no interest in linking Trump with anything positive. Bree says, I had a bumper crop of honey in 2022 and excess deaths in Australia, coincidence. I think it's your honey that killed them. P.S. Beekeepers live longer on average than everybody else. Wow. Okay, we're going to have to investigate that. I heard honey generally has some, particular forms of honey have some pretty strong life extension properties or healthy properties. Maybe you guys eat more honey than others. Fen Harper said, I asked the super chat yesterday that I didn't get read. Ooh, that's not good. It was about if there was a California brain drain due to wokeism or not. I expect there will be. I don't see it yet, or it hasn't been big enough yet, but I do expect that over time it will happen. But I think it's going to happen over many years, and it'll be relatively difficult to discern it and to actually see it. But nothing that I can see yet. I mean, there's a general brain drain from California, more on the entrepreneurial side, more on the, as the poor people are leaving, but also many entrepreneurs and many people are just fed up with dealing with wokeism within their own companies. They're the ones leaving, and with the legal system. But I'm not yet seeing it in academia, but I'm sure it will happen. I'm pretty sure it will happen. Oh, wait, okay, we're just $12 short of the goal, guys. Let's see. I did want to say something. Somebody asked me about this trial of Douglas Mackey. I'll probably talk about that tomorrow. I want to do a little bit more reading about that. But I don't think the trial is a violation of his First Amendment right, not based on what they're accusing him of. What they're accusing him of is basically fraud. And fraud is fraud. Fraud is not speech. So, but I'll talk about that more probably tomorrow after I do a little bit more reading about it. All right. If anybody wants to jump in with $12, that'd be great. If not, we are done. I will see you all. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. Yes, that's good. Don't forget to support the show monthly on Patreon, Subscribestar, or Yaron Book Show. Oh, tonight we've got a show at 7 p.m. East Coast time. I'm not sure exactly what the topic will be, but it will be a 7 p.m. East Coast time tonight. And hopefully you can join me then. And we've got an interview with Jason Crawford on Thursday to talk about progress and human progress and what causes it and everything associated with human progress. I think we just cut the deficit down to 2. Thank you, anonymous user. Thank you, David Arsenault. If somebody wants to jump in with $2, you still can, and we will make our goal. All right, thanks, everybody. I'll see you tonight, 7 p.m. East Coast time.